Okay, it is 7:01, October 15th. We welcome you to our regular city council meeting. In order to get started, we'll go ahead with a roll call vote.
Meekum present.
Heyman present.
Summerhays present.
Plummer present.
And Gina, we're just taking roll call if you want to
It still says joining. There she is.
join. You just joined, Gina. We're taking roll call. Do you want to chime in?
Yes, I'm here, present.
Okay, thank you. We excuse the mayor who's not able to attend with us tonight. This evening, we have a legislative prayer or thought by Council Member Robin Meekum.
I'll do a prayer. Our kind Heavenly Father, we thank Thee so much to be here in this great community, to be in a position where we can hopefully make decisions that will help our community. We ask Thee please to be with us this night and help us to make the decisions that would be best for the people that live in this community. We ask Thee for special blessings to be on all of our first responders and those that are fighting to keep us free so that we can make these decisions. And I say this prayer in Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Robin. We ask that you stand and face the flag, and I'll lead the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now is the time for our open session to allow members of the public to comment or address the city council on any matters that are not listed on the agenda. We do have one public hearing item related to a zone code amendment related to signage in the Parrish Gateway commercial area. If you have a comment for that, you could save it for that public hearing. Otherwise, we invite you to come to the rostrum. Please state your name and where you're from, if you want to do so now.
I was here a week ago. My name's Gary Evanson. I have a piece of ground on 820 South Main, Centerville, in front of the Riviera townhouses. And I want to thank you for sending my money back into my account that they took out. That was very nice of you. I don't know why they took an extra $100, but they did. It's back, I guess. I want to keep this as positive as I can. Over the years, I've been here for quite a while because I was born on that piece of property. And not many people can say that they were born in Centerville on a piece of property. But anyhow, that's beside the point. We first started out with Riviera 1 down there. It was built by Court Lauder. And I don't know what his connection was, but anyhow, it was supposed to be a PUD, okay? Planned project. I used to attend a lot of these meetings here. And he did not have 3 acres of ground. He had 2.5, the same as the piece that I'm sitting on that has behind me, okay? And if you figure out, I listen to this stuff about so many things per acre. You can only put so many houses per acre on this property. I think somewhere you've got to look at, see where the property's at and what you're doing. Court Lauder put 15 houses per acre on the 2.5 acres he's got. Family came along and they wanted to do the same thing, but they didn't have three acres of ground because I was not going along with it. And the reason I wasn't going along is because I could see the writing on the wall. Condos were not selling then. So what happened? They told me I had to move my building in the back to the front, which I done. It's not easy to make a change of a building like that. Anyhow, That's beside the point too. How many do they have on that piece of ground that they give them? They give them 12. And they hooked them together because neither one of them had 3 acres of ground, okay? Neither one of them. And so now you got approximately 6 acres of ground, 5.5 acres of ground, and they were supposed to be hooked together. They are no more hooked together than fly the moon. They don't get along. The gate's closed up there. There's a sign on it. Don't drive through here. What does it matter? A lot of this burden was put on me because I'm at the end of the road and they're always doing construction down there. I don't care when it is. It seems like there's always something going on. They blocked it off once. What did they do? Gate was locked. They came down, went straight through my garden that I took a lot of pride in. And I was upset. You can't change these things. Now, you go to the corner of Pages Lane, you've got 10 per acre, okay? You go up to the piece up there that Bowling had, which is the corners, you have 16 per acre. He got 8 houses on half an acre of ground. This is not right. How many am I okayed to have? First I heard it was 3, then I can have 4. That's all I can have. Something's not fair in life. It's gone on too many years down there with me. And I used to, like I said, attend these meetings and not as scared to say what I have to say. And I want to be plain and blunt with you. It's not right. And it should be made right. It's like I was trying to explain, and I never did finish saying, I allowed the storm sewer to come down the side of the old house down there, and all I wanted was a connection to it. I worked it out with the city officials, and because some individual worked for the city that was building there, which I think is a conflict of interest, but so what, you know? He came down, he had me sign the easement, I sit with the city and talk about not being honest. The next thing I know, I walk out there and I says, where's the box that goes in the corner right here by the sidewalk? And he says, you go to you know where. He says, we've got our easement. And I says, I beg to differ with you. I'd be a little nicer than that if I was you. And I'll tell you why. He says, you can't do anything. We've got our easement. I says, no, you've got a half an easement. My wife didn't sign it. You should not have to fight with the city over such stupid things. Now I've got 2 or 3 connections because Riviera came in a few years ago and put some new drains and so on and it's fine. But something's got to change. I had this property sold, and if I'd have went along with the family, they would have put 12 units in that piece of ground of mine, exactly to the same behind me. And I'm told I can only put 4. It's not right, sorry. So take it for what it's worth. I'm not complaining. I'll just do what I have to do. I don't care which way it goes anymore. But I want to get the most money I can out of that property. I'm greedy, I guess, but I want it to go on to my kids, and I don't want him to have the troubles that I've had with Centerville. I could go on here for a half hour telling you about problems that I've had down there, right from the beginning when my dad deeded it to me. I thank you for your time. I think you'll all do the right job. I think that it should have at least 10 units on it, straight in there with a couple of parking places, if that's what somebody wants to do. I should have the option. I don't understand this overlayment and why it was put on 30 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it was. I was told by Steve Thacker, I went in and talked to him on it. And I said, Steve, what can I do? He says, you cannot build anything commercial on it, but you can sell it commercial. That doesn't make any sense. He says, and I'm guaranteeing that you're going to get enough to go either way you want to go, commercial or residential. I don't see it. I'm sorry. I know it's been a long time. I love Centerville. I'm going to miss being able to go to the parade and have my own parking place. But that's beside the point, you know. I think that this council needs to look at that piece of property and make a decision as to what I can put on it and how I can put on it. Because it's unfair to allow Bowling, and that's the recent one, to have 16 per acre. And I'm allowed 8? It's not right. And I thank you for your time. That's the reason I'm here, to try to solve these problems. That's the only way you get things done, is to talk about it and let you know what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I would encourage you to pay attention to our general plan process as we look at parcels like yours to readjust density. That will be part of that process. So
I
you
don't
can do what you want with your property, but you may want to just see how that plays out.
I don't know too much about this type thing. That's the reason I hired a real estate lady, because I get in conflict coming back at this, that, and the other thing. And at my age, I don't need it.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I want to say one other thing.
Okay.
Mike and his group has been doing a wonderful job. It's great to see somebody that has some sense to them.
Thank you. Any others?
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Cindy Yates.
And Cindy, I'm just gonna, we gave Larry some extreme leeway on that. We try to keep public comments to 2 or 3 minutes, but
Okay.
since he was born here, we did give him a
And-
little extra. So you may have been born on your piece of property too, but for the sake of the agenda, yeah, if you can make your comments within 3 or so minutes, that'd be great.
I will try very, very
Thank you.
hard.
Cindy, so Cindy Yates?
And it's Yeates. I'm with Keller Williams Westfield Brokerage. If you would have asked me before I became a real estate agent what I thought about multi-housing, I probably would have had a very negative opinion of it. Now that this has become my career, and I have worked in it and seen the effects that the housing market is having on families, it causes great concern for me. The median age now for a first-time home buyer is 35 years old. And the reason is because for median pricing and loans, for that person to get a loan, they have to earn $95,000 a year to qualify to buy a home that is 1,800 square feet, built in 1985. And that is just sad. Kids today are unable to get into a home. They're living in grandma's and grandpa's basement. They're living in their parents' basements. They can't get into properties. And that's the American dream. The real estate is increasing at a minimum of 3.8% a year, and it's driving housing prices and the income needed for these kids to own a home. It's just driving them out. I don't think Centerville wants, I know this, I don't want my kids and grandkids having to move away because they can't afford to live in the town that they grew up in. I think that's sad. I love the idea of families growing up in the same community that they went to elementary school, middle school, and high school with. homes are increasing. Condominiums and townhomes are increasing at a minimum of 5% a year. Utah is the #1 desired state in the nation. People are flocking here. We've been the top state for 2 consecutive years in a row. We've been in the top 3 states in the nation for over 10 years. When you talk to builders, okay, during COVID, you look at real estate in a 12-month period of time and inventory. 5 to 7 months worth of inventory is a perfectly balanced market. Anything over 7 months, you have more houses for sale than you do buyers. Anything less than 5 months, you have more buyers than you do homes. During COVID, the entire 2 years, we averaged 2.5 weeks worth of inventory, not 5 to 7 months. That is why housing prices soared, because all these people are moving to our incredible state, and there's only weeks worth of inventory. Right now, we're averaging about 3 months worth of inventory. Builders will tell you it will take them a minimum of 10 years to catch up with the demand. And right now, builders need to build roughly 28,000 homes in Utah this year. And they're saying 10 years to catch up. It is projected by the year 2030, which is just around the corner from us, they will need to build 153,000 homes a year. And so I just wanted to share with you some of these statistics and information so that you could have possibly a different perspective on the housing shortage in our incredible state, and the fact that years ago, people could graduate from college and buy a home, and now that American dream is not being realized. I too want to say that I have had meetings with Mike, Sydney, and Lisa, and I can say nothing but kind words about the 3 of them, that they go above and beyond for anyone I send to them for extra information. They truly go the extra mile. I have never had such kind, hardworking, and gracious people that I've dealt with in any city that I've come forward to work with. And so I think that Centerville City needs to be commended for the people that I've had the opportunity to meet.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. We really love our staff too. Any others? Jennifer, anybody online? Okay, going once, twice. Okay, we'll close the open session. The first business item we have tonight is a public hearing. It is a zoning code amendment related to signs in the Parrish Lane Gateway Commercial District and signs in commercial zones, specifically noted in our zoning code. I believe, Mike, are you going to be presenting for us? Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for letting me be here again with you tonight. So the reason we're back, as you probably remember from the October 1st meeting, there was a directive to staff based upon the motion to do more research and bring back additional code language relative to 3 points that were identified as part of that motion. The first one was that there be an analysis of a sliding scale standard for sign sizing. The second was a sliding scale standard for height allowance. And the third was screening and shielding language for light bleed concerns, specifically or most directly towards residential areas was the highlighted in proximity to frontage road. So with that, as we were doing research, you'll see there on page 2 of the updated staff report, as we were looking at the city code, lo and behold, we realized, and we should have talked about it at the meeting, and I didn't realize it was a thing, we already have it. There's already a sliding scale. It's a half square foot of signage for each 1 lineal foot of frontage along the right of way of the sign face along the street. One thing that also, I don't know that came out in the last meeting that I need to make clear at this meeting, the Young Power Sports XL signage that's existing is 140 square feet. So just take that into account. I don't know that that came out as well, but I want to make that point clear. So that is obviously the reason that we were suggesting 150 square feet as a capture of that situation. But that is the 150 square feet is inserted in that language at the top of page 2, but that references that existing code otherwise. The next item is regarding the sliding scale for height allowance of signage along frontage road. We did an evaluation of the 13 total frontages along frontage road, and I will note 2 of them are owned by the same property owner, but we did evaluate them independently and then combine them as one long frontage.
The Dave's Auto?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's exactly what we're talking about. The average distance of the shorter frontages there of a 4 or 5 was 150, 160 square feet. So I just dropped it to 150 square feet. It seemed to make logical sense for the purpose of what we're looking at here.
You're converting the lineal feetage to the square footage, you mean?
That's what I meant, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, you had the lineal frontage distance. I took the average of the lineal frontage distance.
Okay, yeah.
That's right. And then the top 3 frontage distance, the longest were 900 feet, 565 feet, and then 470 feet. So that's kind of how the spread worked out as far as outliers go. So the proposed language that then I provided was using that 150-foot mechanism as the initial frontage length. That would be, the height would be set at 25 feet or up to 25 feet for the first 150 feet of frontage, and then can be increased 1 foot for every 10 feet of frontage along frontage road in the area to not exceed a maximum of 45 feet in height. That's how I came to that derivative number as far as that. And then obviously all other freestanding signs in the area not on frontage road are still maxed at 25 feet. So anything along 400, your Home Depot, your Walmart, they're still capped at 25 feet. There's no change there. Then moving on to the third item that was requested was a discussion about the shielding and screening. So I did a little bit of research. I thought that that'd be relevant where we talked briefly about LED signs, but I didn't have information, and I have shared that sheet talking about the directionality of LED signs, how they can be toned down in intensity. The electrical output is lower, and they can be, I guess for lack of a better way, manipulated more directly toward the targeted audience they're trying to message to, without the light bleed that you would get from a traditional, what are the terms, put them in here, the traditional, which are the fluorescent lighting, incandescent lighting, and other things that are non-digital. That's where you get your spills, right? Your incandescent lighting is going to be more your traditional light bulbs in an array. Your fluorescent lighting is going to be your tubes or other similar internal lighting in a sign cabinet. Those are where the bleed come from, or those type of lighting designs. That's not to say, and I don't want to overpromise with LED lighting, that it couldn't, but it can be controlled and directed in a way that it doesn't bleed out the same way that the other lighting does. So for that purpose, the recommendation was electronic messaging signs located along frontage road that utilize fluorescent lighting, incandescent lighting, or other similar non-digital lighting will be required to have screening and or shielding along any edges of the sign area that are in the direction of residential areas. And 2, located along frontage road that utilize LED lighting systems that can be regulated and adjusted, and other similar digital lighting systems are not required to have screening and or shielding as long as the lighting is directionally lit away from residential areas. So that was what was suggested in addressing that request from council.
Meaning you don't have to shield if you can direct your light away. If you
Correct.
cannot, then you would fall back under the provision of
Correct.
shielding.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, and we do a check of that and make sure that that's being addressed. Another item is louvers, where they can, just like your window louvers, right, they can actually put louvers into your screens to even further direct that light away, depending on how those louvers are installed. And they can do grid louvers, or they can do, horizontal louvers. It just depends on what kind of lighting mechanism you're trying to address with that.
So Mike, I have one question for
Sure.
you before we go any further.
Yeah.
You said that Young's sign is 140.
Correct.
But our ordinance was only 100. Do you
Correct.
know why?
I don't know why, Councilman Rincon, I don't.
Do you have Corey's phone number? No, I was gonna say that. I have no idea.
I don't know, and it might not be right at 140, it might be like 138 or 139, but it was pretty much, it was 140.
Do you know why, Lisa?
Yeah, I was surprised by that, yeah.
I just don't want to go to 150 and then find out they're 189. If they're 100, we gave them 150. I don't, I kind of want to know how they got that so that we don't go to one and get another.
No, I have verified that one in particular. I have to at least talk to Corey about the numerical finding, and he did say that it's the numerical finding. Again, I don't know how he got there or why it was approved that way, but that is what the numbers are for it.
But this, you feel that this new language would, for some reason, clear up any ambiguity or avoidance of doubt?
Yeah, trying to capture it, trying to still conservatively protect the values of the city, but also maintain the integrity of the signage that's already existing along there, yeah. And then, the only other alterations are what was previously evidenced in our previous discussion. A public hearing was advertised for the meeting tonight and posted in accordance with state and city code requirements, so.
Thank you.
And then I have added, like I said, the one sheet on LED information that I did find, so.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions from council to Mike? I do have one question, Mike.
Sure.
So in section 6B, subset 3, you talk about a planned center, which I'm guessing is a property owner. I don't know what the definition of a planned center is, but it goes on to say it may have one freestanding sign for each street upon which the center has frontage, not to exceed 2 freestanding signs per planned center. This is in the subsection B related to frontage road. So does this section allow a property owner, in my mind, I don't know who this would relate to other than Young, the T-box owners, as well as, do we qualify the road between Coles and the old Power Sports as an actual city road?
No,
I don't know that is.
that'd be
That's
an internal commercial
That's a
drive.
private road, isn't it?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
my question is, does this new language allow for 2 of these 150-foot signs potentially to be installed along Porter Lane?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
T-Box is not in a planned center. Young Power Sports is a planned center because they have multiple brands that they sell, so
So
they do meet the qualification of planned center.
Could they put 150-foot sign or a 45-foot sign on
And what I'm
Porter's
getting
Lane?
On the
at,
Porter
Robin,
side.
is kind of where I'm leading you to is, I'm comfortable with our sign ordinance along frontage road, but this language as it relates to a second sign,
Yeah.
potentially on Porter, or if there was another potential, if there was some kind of a subdivision process whereby a city street was created where the marketplace cutoff, let's call it, is, that would potentially lead to additional signage that we didn't foresee, and so I'm just trying to
They-
understand what language you have here.
To your point, they can have 2 signs if they're a planned center on either of the frontages. So arguably, if there was a benefit to only do 2 signs on Porter and not have them on frontage, I guess hypothetically they could, with the way the code's currently drafted.
And so if I want to make a motion not to allow that,
Then you
we would
just
go back to one
excluding-
sign
Or-
only on frontage road,
Or you could
correct?
say excluding Porter. The code that's currently existing for planned centers elsewhere already allows for, if you look up higher, this was actually.
And that's why I was asking the definition, because planned center is not a capitalized, it doesn't feel like it's a defined term.
Yeah, if you
as
look,
Defined term.
if you
Okay,
look
so it
at,
is a defined term, but it wasn't capitalized, so I didn't,
Yeah, it's a planned center that's planned all together with a conditional use permit.
okay.
So I don't know if this is your commercial plan developments or if it's a different animal, but, the idea is that it's a unified project with similar landscaping, and so you want to consolidate the advertising and the signs. So for each street frontage, they get one, and every business in the plan center doesn't get a sign.
yeah, the goal is to minimize it to only in this case would be 2 maximum in a situation like, for instance, Young, right? And if you look at 1254 120 BC, or B, excuse me, not C, B, G, that's where that language is native, already existing in the code even before I redrafted it lower for frontage road.
And I could see when it's a planned center, if you're on 400 West and it extends all the way to frontage road, you want to advertise for that planned center. And maybe that was the purpose of the 2 signs. But I feel that, me personally as a council member, that when you're abutting a different use and the planned center doesn't extend a certain length, that I'm not comfortable with that.
We could put language like solely along front signage, solely along frontage road. I mean, if it wanted to be that restrictive and not have any signage on any of the road but frontage road along that district, that could be.
Well, I agree with that, because I
And that's
feel like
kinda
that's
where
what
I'm
we were
going.
That would
looking
not
at
be a
was
hard
frontage road.
amendment.
Precisely.
This was frontage road that was
Right.
brought to us, and this is what we were
That would not be a
looking
hard
for.
amendment. It would be somewhere inserted in that language as located solely along frontage road.
Right,
It would be
because
that simple.
I don't want to, I mean, and I, been on the council long enough, I realize things change. So we look at these businesses now, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't get a business that
Yeah.
goes from Fourth West down to, you know what I mean, in maybe years, but I don't want to have that sign. I mean, basically, if it did go to Fourth West, you could put it on Fourth West. I want to, right now, I feel like we're just looking at the frontage road, so I want to make sure that.
So at 3, yeah, I could say per plan center as located solely along frontage road. And that I think would address, I feel like that would address, I mean, I'm just crafting it on the fly, right? But the concept would be there in that Article 3.
We do have
Are
a
you
public,
still allowing 2 signs then, even if they are both on frontage road, is that what?
I think 1 sign is sufficient, because if we're just talking about frontage road, and I'm happy for somebody to correct me if they think I'm going the wrong direction, but
The reason,
the
just real-
discussion has been frontage road, and so we're talking about signage along.
the
frontage
reason for that, like, again, for Young specifically, is they have a Honda brand that will have Honda signage, and then they have Young Power Sports that will have its own signage, right? So from their perspective, that's why they might be required to do the Honda signage by the Honda brand. And if they're only limited to 1 sign, I don't know how they address that. I'm not Young, I'm just explaining what may occur in that scenario. So.
Yeah, so I think as.
So what you're, yeah, go ahead, Lisa. and-
As Mike mentioned, it does appear that this is already allowed in our code under freestanding signs. It does say a planned center may have 1 freestanding sign for each street upon which the center has frontage, not to exceed 2 freestanding signs per planned center. So that's already in our sign code at section 120. And then it also talks about, in the next section, multi-tenant signs in a planned center, because they are regulated differently because it's a planned center.
But we're increasing the height, and we don't want to increase the height. I mean, that was already in there with 25-foot signs. It's a big difference if you're sticking a 45-foot sign in a neighborhood as opposed to a 25. So I'm glad that Spencer's caught it, because I feel that's
And I
almost,
think you could remedy that by saying, I could almost say, well, I'm okay with 2 signs, so long as signs abutting residential uses stay at the 25, but those that are along frontage road can
I
go
would
to
say
45.
only frontage road signs can be
I mean,
45.
you could even say you're only allowed 1 45-foot tall sign.
Correct.
You could even
Yes.
go that far.
Yeah.
With a plan
And that would
center.
remedy it as well. So they could put a sign on Porter Lane, which would be
Right.
fine, it would be more like a
'Cause they could-
monument type of a
Up
sign.
to 25, and
up to
then
25.
145.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
and
just
I'm
to-
okay.
just to
I'm
say-
not trying
Which
to,
feels more in line with what our existing ordinance, I don't want to try and recraft, so I appreciate you clarifying that, Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, that is doable. I could add a sentence that states that very thing right there.
Let me ask this, is in our sign ordinance then, is there a setback or buffering requirement for that sign to the next property line?
Oof, I don't,
So could O'Reilly, because I guess, well, that doesn't extend in the Parrish Gate Lane zoning district,
Are
does
you
it?
thinking about overlapping signs, is that?
No,
Where
I'm
you're
thinking
heading.
about if you're on Porter Lane, really, it's Porter Lane. I mean, if you had the Young Power Sports sign, I don't want to make their life hard. I want them to be successful, but I also don't want a massive sign right on the property line that abuts or is close to the
Residential.
So it's kind of like, it's almost like our building setbacks notion as it relates to signage
I
setbacks.
haven't researched that. I wish I had an immediate answer. I wish I was like years and years of experience to tell you a quick answer, but I don't have it yet.
Yeah, because if you had a 25-foot sign, it feels like you should have maybe at least a 25 or 30, 35-foot setback from the property line for that as your sign next to that zone.
That may be
Is
something
that,
else that
am
we
I
need to
tracking
look-
that?
No, you are.
Is that making
I-
sense?
I get what you're saying. It sounds like they're already allowed to put the 20-foot fine sign wherever it is,
Yeah,
right? I mean, like the
yeah.
code existingly, they could put
See,
it up
they could do
tonight.
two right now.
So
Yeah.
I would
That's
like
25
to
foot, yeah.
get a motion and vote on a motion tonight, but I would suggest that in our next meeting, we remedy that also as maybe an amendment and not try and, we send it back
I mean,
again to you.
we'll do it, I mean, I followed the meeting last time closely and listened to the motion. We'll do whatever you tell us to do. You know, we're ready to bring sign code back. You can see we're already trying to take some inroads with LED and digital signage. That's just the start, tip of the iceberg, because it sounds like that's a bigger thing. We're open to whatever we're directed to do for
Okay.
the sign code to be more robust.
Okay, but we do have obviously a public hearing on this, so we probably ought to let the public chime in if there are any people from the public, and then we can discuss it further. So, let me just make sure I'm doing everything right. So I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for this zoning code amendment related to signs in the Parrish Lane Gateway Commercial District. Gina's our only online participant, Jennifer, okay? Anyone here commenting on our public hearing for the signage? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing. Any more questions for staff or any discussion amongst ourselves on this?
I will speak for myself. I'm fine allowing the larger signs, but I only want it along that front. Like, I don't agree with allowing bigger signage on the side streets like Porter, so we need to clean that up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I appreciate staff for coming back with the light shielding, because I think that's the primary concern that people have when they're thinking about signage. And I think that that's a really good compromise between allowing businesses to advertise their business in a way that will promote the business here in Centerville while also protecting our residents. So I appreciate that suggestion.
Great.
Any other comments, or is anybody?
I would also like to say that I concur with the other council members about no signage on side streets such as Porter or Pages. I am concerned about LED lights. I am concerned about how that, even with shielding, how that might affect residents that are close. And I would like to steer away from lights personally. I noticed recently that Brant sent us a list of some of our larger, or the commercial businesses that provide the most sales revenue from taxes, and none of those businesses, they all are not on the frontage road. Well, actually, I take that back. There are a couple that are on the frontage road, but they're doing business without these larger signs. So my thought is, you know, let's tighten it up, this ordinance, so that in the future, we don't have multiple signs going up on businesses, that we don't have signs going up on side streets, but do we really want to have LED lights in this area where really there isn't a need, and just because we can doesn't mean we have to? And I'll end it there.
Mike, you didn't address in any of the red lines, brightness or lumens? What was the
That,
conversation?
I would need more time to do a more robust rollout of that, but
Okay.
I could definitely give you options.
Okay, so this is kind of rollout number one,
Right.
as we discussed in
Right,
our
because I
last
would have
meeting?
to take that still through a process with the planning commission and public
Correct.
hearing and all that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would look at options of other cities and get a more robust finding on that.
Brian, I would only counter that LEDs can be adjusted in their brightness, whereas an incandescent light is what it
is what
is,
it is.
for the most
That's
part.
right.
Like, for a commercial sign, you don't have dimmer
Yeah,
switches.
That's right. And
Um,
whether,
and
yeah.
fluorescent, generally, you don't have that option. It's available, like, in your home or something else like that, but for a commercial lighting standpoint, LEDs are also vastly more energy efficient.
And currently, the code does allow pretty liberally for message boards in along frontage road. Like right now, there's not a lot of control.
Yeah, and so I think you would find some consensus
Currently.
among the council, based off our last meeting and this meeting, that, I mean, Brian wants, it sounds like Brian doesn't want any electronic signs. I think some council members are fine with, at least I can speak for myself, I'm fine with
Right
electronic
now,
signs,
it's-
so long as the brightness is
But-
not obtrusive.
But when you're saying, okay, let's go to LED because they can control them, but do we have anything in our ordinance that says we can go say, your lights are too bright, you need to turn them down, or you need to turn them off at
Yeah.
a certain time? We need to have that to make sure that, I mean, we haven't really stated exactly how bright
And
they
what
can
Robin
be.
may be saying is we would create a gap in our code unless, do we have LEDs allowed, like,
Currently.
do we even stipulate what is prohibited? So somebody could use LED right now.
Right,
wanted
and
to.
I'm just saying, I want to be able to go and say, look, you're bothering all the neighbors, we need you to turn them down, and them say, well, that's not in your
Honestly,
code.
I would address it as a code enforcement complaint at that point, and that's how I'd work on remedying it.
And then even, so, but if there isn't a code, can you enforce it, or can they
If
say
it's
we can?
creating health, safety, welfare impacts to a neighborhood, yeah, yeah.
That's my only concern, is I don't
Yeah.
want somebody to,
I've had that experience in other cities, yes, you can.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Gina, any comments?
I agree with the signage on the side streets. I think I liked it maybe just being more specifically, the language being just that the signs are allowed on frontage road. I can't force,
I think we've got her in it.
I don't know if that would cause any problems down the road, should they sell that and it becomes redeveloped and,
Gina, we lost you for about 10 seconds, if you want to read.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I agree with the signs on the side roads. I don't know if the language needs to be just specific to the frontage road. I think that was the intent of what we discussed last time. It sounds like council members are on board with that, but I'm just thinking of the air serv
Almost,
The air supply, I think she was
Yeah.
going there.
right.
a higher, a high sign, but that's my only concern, is just that we get the language so that it's just more that those taller signs are allowed on the frontage road.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion, or I guess I could make a motion too.
Are you comfortable with just directing staff to fix the language without us looking at it again?
Yeah, I
would be
think
okay with that.
as Mike said, he said as located solely along frontage road. So that would be the one direction to staff.
Okay, so I will move that we approve ordinance number 2024-16, amending sections 12.54-120 and 12.54.13 of the Centerville zoning code regarding signs in Parrish Lane Gateway Commercial District and signs in commercial zones as proposed by staff, with the clarification that the 45-foot signage will only be allowed on frontage road. Is that acceptable, Lisa? I always look to you. Okay, that one is an acceptable motion for
We
Lisa.
have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Can I just clarify, as far as we talked about the 45 feet, but we have sort of an inclining rate, the more frontage, the bigger the sign. Do we want to just say that it's only 25 feet on
Okay,
the
that's a-
side.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
it
a
should
good
be maxed,
clarification.
but I think it's maxed out on those side streets at 25 as the current code exists. Is that right? So there wouldn't be, need to be amendment?
I don't think there's enough frontage currently, but you certainly could add that language.
I think it's a good belt and
There was-
suspenders.
Okay, so I'm going to modify my motion to say no signage on side roads outside of frontage that exceed 25 feet.
Okay. Robin, do you want to, do you
You
want to,
accept my
do you
friendly
accept
amendment?
I will second that.
that,
friendly.
second the friendly amendment? Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion, a second. Gina, for ease, why don't we start with you and then we'll go to Robin?
Okay, aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Okay, thank you, Mike, appreciate it.
And we'll keep working on it, bring more back.
Yes, thank you. And I think, council, I think the brightness is important because if you drive along Main Street at night, it's not just the dental group, it's also the fizz bulbs, by the way, are extremely bright.
Which again, are.
Yes, those are incandescents.
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
They
Okay. Okay, the next item on our agenda is Black and McDonald Street Light Maintenance Agreement. Mike, you have that one for us? Awesome.
Mayor Pro Tem Council, happy to be here today. This seems like a lighting conversation. Glad to be able to join in. Other than I brought my two experts on lighting. So this is Melissa and Wade with, I'll turn some time over to her in just a second,
Great.
but they're with Black and McDonald, who we're writing a contract with right now. We were proceeding into the contract and Lisa was reviewing it. Found some changes that we would like to try to make before we go into the contract. But Brent thought that it would be good if we bring it to you guys so you can understand more what the contract is. I'll kind of highlight the last year that we've had them. We've now got it to where citizens can go onto our website, which is actually their website, click a street light that's not, street light that's not working, go in, report that, it goes directly to them. They're able to respond to us. Me and Mark get an email telling us that they're involved and what they're going to do to fix it or what the problem may be. So it's really helped in our office in them taking over for our administrative staff and staff time. It's been very beneficial in my opinion as far as the reporting go. The only problem we have is another entity that has street lights that we can't get to fix as fast as the others. I'll just leave it at that.
On public right-of-ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyhow, some of the things that we've been trying to accomplish is getting all the lights that are bad, that are not working, trying to get them up and going. With supply problems, we've had a little bit of a hard time getting everything here. The decorative lights are kind of a problem. We have a couple down by McDonald's that are bad, but it's just you can't get them. And so they've been working on it. They do keep a lot of parts on hand. So this is something they're going to keep one decorative light for us. So if it goes bad, they can put it up and then order another one. So there are some supply problems, so to speak. So like I say, we're trying to wrap up some of the stuff. I've appreciated it. It just seems like I remember, before going into the contract, there used to be a lot of calls and we had to work with a lot of staff and they'd call us and we'd have to call them. Now we've taken some of the link out, which I think works out real well. One thing that I like that they do is they go out and actually hunt out the lights once a month. They drive around town, look for lights that are out or whatever. Part of their contract, and you can get into it when we look at the contract, but they do a lot of cleaning. I don't want to get into Melissa's part here, but anyway, they do a lot of maintenance on them that is tied into the contract. There are some things, however, that are not in the contract, which you would expect that to be. So with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Melissa. And I think she has a presentation. Look at that. Holy cow. And these are your great people ask about luminous and all that stuff. They know all about that stuff.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mike.
Mike.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me here, everyone. I appreciate the time. Are you going to be my clicker, Lisa? Nice. Oh, Jennifer, thanks. I appreciate it. Okay, so just a little bit about us. So Black & McDonald is a family-owned business. We've been in business for a little over 100 years now. We've been in the States for a little over 28, which actually started here in Utah, so we're pretty proud of that to be the first down here. Started with streetlights, which is pretty awesome for us. We have over 350,000 streetlights that we maintain throughout North America and about 300 charging stations. As you guys are aware, that's kind of a newer business that we're in, but I'm doing really well with it. We enjoy it. Energy savings is kind of part of our bigger business. Out of our Salt Lake group, we have the Streetlight group, which obviously Mike said we help maintain. We have a civil group, which contains different back trucks, trenchers, bore machines. They're kind of your more civil construction company. We also have a line construction group that does all the higher power wattage, and then substation groups as well. So we definitely try to be a all-energy turnkey solution for cities and municipalities. One thing that's good about us, we've held and maintained the Rocky Mountain Power LSA for over 20 years. I'll explain a little bit more about that in the next couple slides. So some of the things that's good with us, we do have a GIS group. As Mike mentioned, we go through your city, we map all the lights once a year. We do inventory, procurement, and storage.
Melissa, that's
Yeah.
this map is your map, essentially.
Yeah, so you could click on that, it'll take you report an issue, opens your email, so it's pretty slick little system we have. Some of the things we do, like he said, the nightly patrol that we go through the city, we fix lights right when they're out, so that way residents aren't calling it in, and hopefully that cuts down on your guys' call for your administration. We have crew members of over 20 plus years in the business. We have the 24-hour call center. And then our team, we do a lot of training. So we have our own apprenticeship program we run, as well as a safety program as well. So that's there. Yeah, so this is our GIS map. So that's your city kind of squished into one. Total, you guys are looking at about 700 lights throughout your whole entire city. Those are just city-owned lights and Rocky Mountain Power-owned lights. I know you have a lot more within your city buildings. We do maintenance tracking. We have the capabilities to do underground GPSing with our lights. We have the reporting tool as well as our data collection. We're kind of a one-stop shop when it comes to that. We do the wattage, the pole type, we take pictures, and that's all available through our GIS. With our procurement, so we do have our own warehouse. It's all housed out in West Salt Lake. We do carry a lot of fixtures. We have poles. We have a couple warehouse guys that work in there, as well as, all of our field guys that help out. We do have our storage of materials in a safe environment. We also dispose of those in an environmentally safe manner. We do our best to procure everything at a great price. We have great relationships with a lot of vendors. Some of them we've been working with for over 20 years, so we get grandfather pricing. We can buy from them direct instead of having to go through a third party, which definitely cuts down for your guys' costs as well. So those are just some of the highlights there.
So speaking of LED bulbs, are you replacing all bulbs now as LEDs, or do some of them not able because the ballasts are dated?
That's correct. So if a ballast goes bad, we are, with city's approvals, changing those out to LEDs. Right now, we are still switching the bulbs out.
Okay. So that would be a question on the maintenance. Does the maintenance just require bulbs, and if we have to change a ballast, does the city bear the cost for a ballast and not a bulb?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have any idea how many LEDs versus incandescent lights we have? I'm just curious, out of those 700?
Yeah, you do. So Rocky Mountain Power actually owns 373 of your lights. You guys have right now 89 LED lights and then about 395 of the incandescent lights. So, and all of Rocky Mountain Powers are going to be incandescent right now. They are not doing any LEDs in the city. So this is some of our work tracking that we do per pole. So with our work orders, we like to base everything on one pole, so one work order per pole. We have information dating back to 2011, which is when you guys started with Rocky Mountain Power, having your own lights. So it's kind of one thing that's nice about us is, as you can see in some of these blocks, like that bottom one, for example, that one pole we've worked on 5 different times starting in 2015. So we can kind of track to see exactly what the problems have been. If the fuse is going out every single time, it's like, hey guys, let's go trace the line, figure out exactly why that's actually going bad so often. And, ballast, for example, if we've replaced a ballast, a couple times, the head's bad, the driver's going out, we need to replace it. So that's one thing that our Oracle-based system does, which is definitely a benefit for us and you guys as well. So this is some of our contract reviews. So this is what you guys are getting as of right now. So right now there's a unit rate portion, and that's gonna cover that monthly pass-through where the guy goes through, he fixes anything that needs to be, he does lamps, photo cells, fuses, breakers, cleans the lens, make sure there's no branches that are interfering with the light, because that can definitely cause problems, especially if it breaks it. Inspection of the poles, tighten any of the brackets, the anchor bolts, and actually just looks at the pole to make sure it's safe and sound. And all those items are taken care of within 72 hours. So I was looking, and just in the last year we've been working with you guys, we have found, let's see, little over 200 work orders out that our guys have found. There's only been 16 call-ins from the city and only 6 from residents going on that online portal. So for us, that's a win. We want to obviously be finding more than your residents are finding, because then you guys aren't getting those calls, which is pretty great.
I have a kind of a dumb question.
No.
Why is it the city owns some in Rocky Mountain? I mean, I don't know why Rocky Mountain is willing to, why do we have Rocky Mountain lights? And
I could give you a whole speech on my feelings, but I think a lot of it is honestly, it's hard to get Rocky Mountain Power to sell lights right now. And Mike might have a little more insight that he might want to say about that. But
They always own lights.
Right.
When decorative, they started forcing cities to own the lights. They don't want nothing to do with decorative lighting.
Right.
Okay.
So it's just a overhead on the poles that they own.
Yeah.
Well, and also in those areas that they had them, the residents required them and wanted them. And so the residents actually pay that money to Rocky Mountain Power, or I can't remember if it comes through our bills or not, but they pay part of that cost for them, because they were in a subdivision that they wanted to have the street lights in it. I'm not sure how that all came about, but that's why we don't do it. But we have some responsibility with them that we don't like, but like the reconstruction, we gotta put the conduits in, and then they pull new wires. We've been through that rodeo a couple times, so, but yet the main thing is they ended up getting the money whether we collected or however. I'm not sure how that works, but the residents wanted them in that area versus, I guess, what we were gonna put up, or they didn't have any, so. That's my understanding from a long time ago.
Yeah, and we can definitely do more research. We do have access to Rocky Mountain Power System, their feed maps, and all of that data. So it's kind of that perfect being the liaison too, so.
Fascinated, like, that Rocky Mountain, of all people, provide incentives to change out, like, a lot of equipment in commercial applications, but they don't do it themselves on their power poles, but that's just a side comment.
Right, and you're completely correct. We have that question a lot, so, yeah. Sorry, just go back once. So just on the extra work, so that's some of the stuff that you were talking about that the city would pay extra for. So those are like our make-safe situations. So if you guys have car hit poles, you only had 4 last year, which is fantastic. We are required, and we will go clean that up within 2 hours. So we'll disconnect the power, clean up the pole, and make this situation safe.
Did you really say just 4 is fantastic?
Like,
does this happen a lot?
oh, that happens a lot. 4 is incredible.
Wow.
I'm giving you that. Yes. Yeah, so we do come out within, like I said, that 2-hour timeline, 24/7. Doesn't matter if it's Christmas Eve, our guys will come out and do that. We do have a 24-hour call center, so you guys can call that. I know the staff has that phone number. They have our personal numbers, our foreman phone numbers, so any one of those people will be on within 2 hours and have somebody on site to make that safe. Some of those other things that we definitely like to just think about and look at is pole painting. That's something that a lot of people ask about, maintenance of poles, and that's a big one to actually help with cities. It cuts the cost down on replacing poles. It's about half the cost of a brand new pole and can make it last about 10 years longer. So we do offer all those services. It's just something at the city's discretion. We never go out and do any of those things without permission. For anything that is extra work, for example, that car hit pole or underground cables getting destroyed, we do those all within 10 business days. Whereas, like I said, on the unit rates, those will be fixed and repaired within 72 hours. And so we kind of talked a little bit about that Rocky Mountain Power LSA. So that gives us access to get into transformers and secondary boxes, have access to their feed maps, which really helps if you guys are putting in new subdivisions to see where the new power is going to be and power sources. And we also report any new LED changes to them for you. So if we go out, the ballast is bad, the driver's bad, Mike's like, put in an LED, we'll actually tell the Rocky Mountain Power that so they can put that savings on your bill and get that switched out, because it is a pretty significant savings that you guys pay differently. Yeah, and then like I said, the turnkey streetlight department, so we do have, we have the capabilities to do any pre-construction work, help with engineer drawings, layout services, we do all the construction for streetlights, and then obviously follow through with the maintenance. Yeah, and those are just some of the cities that we do work for. We've been working for you guys for, like I said, the last 20 years with Rocky Mountain Power, been working with Mike for the last year, it's been great. I really appreciate your guys' time. Do you have any questions on this or anything we talked about?
I'll throw one comment in. We've been trying to get an LED grant to where we can replace lights. We traced it down. Ferguson Group started helping us out with it. We located it where we had to go to basically Davis County to get the money. We're unable to secure any of that money. We're still looking for more grants where we could change more to LED. So we're trying to find what we can find where we can find it. We've had bad luck on grants for some reason, but on street lights anyway.
I don't think
Good
it's
luck
just you
otherwise.
guys, so.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Mike, this is more of a question for Nate, but you can stay here. So on the amount of the contract, Nate, how does that tie into what we approved in the budget? Because this contract is the 22,321.
Yeah, so we've budgeted 40,000 for streetlight repairs. I believe the staff report said this is in the $22,000 range.
Correct.
So this would allow us to have this contract and then some extra for those repairs.
Or the
that
repairs are
we're
outside
talking
the
about.
contract? Okay, okay, perfect. Thank you, Melissa, thanks, Nate.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I have a very non-substantive comment. Look at American Fork's logo.
I was waiting for you to say that.
That's what I was thinking.
I was waiting for you to say that. That is off topic, but on point.
Just saying. All right.
Okay. Any other questions? Lisa, you have some
Yes, I
comments
just had
related to the
a
contract?
comment on the contract, just so you know. The recommendation is to approve the contract, subject to, if you want to say, non-substantive revisions acceptable to the city attorney, and also authorizing the Public Works Director to sign this automatically. That might be easier for us to get signed.
Yeah.
But, so I sent out a red line to Black and McDonald last week, and they didn't really have a lot of time. So I went ahead and put the clean version of my red lines in the packet, but they're probably going to come back with some negotiations. So I'll just use discretion. If they're substantive and we want to argue over something, then we can bring it back.
Okay.
But I think we're close enough to approve it as drafted.
Perfect. Any other questions from council? I'll go ahead and make a recommendation that we approve the streetlight maintenance agreement with Black and McDonald for streetlight maintenance and repair services, subject to revisions acceptable to the city attorney, and authorize the Public Works Director to sign the contract on behalf of the city.
Second,
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion?
there's a missing quotation around the definition of city on the professional services contract award form. I'm sorry,
Which
that just like
page?
jumped out at me. I couldn't
We
help
got the
it.
Harvard line.
Yeah, where? Which
It's the
page?
professional services contract award form, just that one half pager that Mike will be
Oh,
signing.
yes, I see that.
City is missing
I'll accept the friendly amendment on the Scrivener's error.
on the Scrivener's error.
The city attorney agrees to that as well.
I couldn't not say it once I saw it, sorry.
Okay, is Gina still with us?
No.
Okay. Let's do a roll call vote. Robin, starting with you.
Aye.
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 I'm sorry, who seconded the motion?
I did.
Shane did
Thank
that.
you.
That would be Councilmember Heeman.
Sorry, thank you. Way too informal. Get this guy out of here fast. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, next item on our agenda is the Previdence Wellness Platform Service Agreement for the Police Department. Chief, will you be presenting on that one?
Yes.
Great.
Good evening. So we get to talk again about Previdence. Seems like we've had a few conversations regarding them. But as a recap, they are a company that provides wellness, a wellness platform and comprehensive plan for first responders. We've been with them for a few years, but this also satisfies a requirement by House Bill 59 from last year that requires police departments to provide mental health resources and very particular resources for their first responders. So we've been using Previdence for a few years now, and it's been working out really well. We're seeing a lot of utilization and a lot of benefit from their services. Last year we had a contract with them. We had signed an agreement at a rate. This year, starting fiscal year 25, that rate did go up by 50%. So it was a substantial increase. But in
Say 15 or 50?
50.
50.
Yeah, so it went from about 8,000 to 12,000 for the year. And during our negotiations with Previdence, it became clear the necessity for the increase. We had utilization within our department that was higher than expected, and so it was definitely unfair for Previdence to continue to eat the overages, which is what they did last year. Yet last year we definitely utilized the company much more than what we paid for.
And just to clarify, this, based off the staff report, this is kind of like an early renewal based off of their requirements that they're trying to avoid a health plan provider status.
Yes.
So is that 50% effective as of July 1, 2025?
Yes, we agreed to that.
Okay,
Because
so
we're already into this second term.
Correct.
And I would rather have it end our fiscal year. So 90 days out is when we're doing our budget and we can decide, and, you know, we communicated with them that we're gonna need to, you know, start this negotiation sooner, but, so we have it in our budget. So it does go retroactive to July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. It's 1-year term, but we can negotiate 90 days out for a renewal if we want, but it's not automatic.
But the renewal that we're discussing, or at least this amendment renewal that we're talking about right now, on the 50% increase, is effective July 1, 2025, which means we'll have.
2024.
2024.
Sorry, 2020, yeah.
That's what I was asking. So it's a retroactive 50% increase?
It is,
Yes.
yes.
And
Okay.
we actually already signed an update, so, to the new increased fee
Okay.
in June. So we're just negotiating the contract in accordance with that.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we had already presented this in the budget and it had been approved, the 12,000.
Right, okay.
So this is just working on the fine print of how the program works. The actual utilization and the rollout of the program, nothing really has changed much. So other than now they're capping. So prior, they were offering us unlimited, you know, therapy and resources for officers for a set amount. And Previdence found themselves in a difficult position where they could be potentially classified as like a healthcare provider or health insurance plan, I guess, or something like that. They really wanted to avoid. And so they're wanting for us to sign new agreements that will make sure that that relationship with them is better defined. And so, in fact, when I say where there's a 50% increase, what we did is that House Bill 59 had some grants associated with it. So last year, that House Bill grant funded the entire program, the whole 8,000. The grant can only fund new or expanded services. And so for this year, the House Bill is actually picking up and paying that additional 4,000. So starting next fiscal year, we'll be on the hook for all of it.
And to your point, they're capping it at 85 sessions is kind of their limit, correct?
Correct.
That's for all officers.
Officers, dependents, spouses,
Dependent
retirees.
spouses. So
Right.
85 visits total,
Do
no
we
matter
know
who
how many
uses
we
them.
used last year?
Yes, but I really do not want to go into that.
Oh, okay.
Is
Well,
it,
you said capped at 85. Are we close to that 85, or is 85 going to be plenty?
Once again, I'd really not like to get into specifics of our, of utilization, in this forum.
But let me ask you this question, on retirees, is that a benefit, end-of-life benefit, or is it a retiree for a certain number of years after retirement?
3 years.
3 years, okay.
So right now, we just have one officer.
That would
on,
qualify.
That would qualify, yes.
And I'm sorry, can you, I looked briefly through the paperwork here and I didn't see it jump out readily at me. What type of services are provided? Is this telehealth appointments? Is it in-person appointments? Is it some other type of service in addition to the things I've just named?
Yeah, so overall, they provide biannual assessments that are then followed up by I forget her term, but basically she works with the officers and finding out their needs, and then if needed, she'll put them in contact with a therapist to work, and then that form of therapy will be whatever they determine to be best, whether it be a tele or in person. And there's a whole gamut of various methods of therapy and different treatments.
So our officers, if they identify a therapist, it sounds like there's a coordinator, I'll call for lack of a better term, right?
Yes.
A coordinator that can get people out to the folks that they need to, and they get to see the same person over and over. It's not like you just get who you get.
Right, no,
Okay.
it's the same person, and every therapist is vetted and trained, trauma-informed trained, and
The reason that I am asking this question is the Utah State Bar for Lawyers has put in place a program that allows lawyers to seek mental health services, which has been phenomenal, I think, from an attorney standpoint, but it operates a little differently than what you've described, so I was just trying to get a sense as to what this one was like versus the one that I'm more familiar with.
Yeah, so this program actually has been working out really well on the front end for the officers, very seamless. There's no pushback. No one ever sees a bill. We never see any kind of information on our side on who utilizes what.
So as a follow-up, they have biannual assessments. Is that fall under service 1 or 2 in the contract? In other words, is that one of the 85 sessions? Okay, that's what I was hoping the answer was.
Right.
But I don't want them to like, oh, really, it's not 85 sessions because we have 20-plus officers. It's half of that number.
No, yeah, these are actual
They do them
sessions.
twice a year, that's
live
40 of our
sessions with the
85.
person.
Okay, perfect.
And then Previdence is also rolling out an app and a whole online presence where the assessments will be done on the app. The app will have various resources available to them. They can schedule things. They can. So that's been kind of a work in progress as well. So yeah, for right now, they're still. Lisa has been really good working with Previdence to iron out all the details, and so that still is in progress, right? So you'll see the red line version, and so what we're asking today is to approve us to sign the agreement, but once again, subject to revisions acceptable to Lisa.
Perfect. Any other questions for Chief?
For Chief.
Okay. But for Lisa?
Yeah, I got a comment for Lisa. I didn't see any of your red lines, and I didn't see anything in this contract that stood out for me. This is only a one-year contract, so I'm not gonna push this super hard, but I hate arbitration. I would encourage us never to arbitrate unless we absolutely can't get away from it. It is supposed to be a speedy, more efficient remedy, and it is not. It is not more speedy, it is not more efficient, and I think it has considerable downfalls. I would much prefer to just litigate a case. And I don't see any reason in this contract to require arbitration. I mean, it's not even required to be confidential, right? Like, I just don't see any reason for arbitration, so there's my own editorial.
Well, I was on a Zoom call with Previdence and their attorneys this morning, and so we agreed to many of my red lines, not all of them. They wanted a chance to look at them, but I'm hoping they will agree to our city has 30 days to just get out of it. And so that's why I think, it's unlikely, but I appreciate the input, and we can try to push back. Certainly, I can take a harder stance on future contracts to avoid the arbitration. But on this one,
This is a
plus
one-year
we
thing.
only have a few you know, we're partly
8 months.
into.
Yeah, this is why I'm giving it more to you for just my own edification. I do not think that arbitration provisions are ever valuable or warranted except in very narrow circumstances that don't seem applicable here. There, you all get my Shaylin hates arbitration speech.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Chief? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve the Previdence Wellness Platform Service Agreement and related documents for mental health and wellness services for police department members, spouses, dependents, and retirees, subject to revisions acceptable to the city attorney, and I would move that we authorize Police Chief Alan Ackerson to sign the agreement on behalf of the city.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, and Councilmember Meekum is seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, none. Councilmember Hayman, we'll start with you.
Aye.
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 Okay, that motion passes 4-0.
Do we still have Gina?
I don't think so, is what
Did
Jennifer,
she? Oh, she
I think
hopped off. Okay.
we lost her. Okay, next item on the agenda is to approve minutes from our October 1st work session and regular city council meeting. Were there any changes to those? And if not, a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously as well. Okay, we have a quarterly financial report, Nate.
Good evening, council. As Councilman Summer has mentioned, we are now a quarter of the way through the fiscal year, so we get to give a report on it. Start off on this page, this is just the cash balances of each fund. Just a couple things I wanted to note here. The first being in the rec fund, you'll notice that we went negative cash there towards the tail end of the last fiscal year. So we needed to transfer $17,500 that was done in, this transfer was done in fiscal year 24. We transferred that from the general fund to the rec fund so that it would have so it would be compliant and have a positive balance at fiscal year end.
Nate, when we make those transfers from one fund to another, are they considered like internal loans, or is it just a payment and away we go?
This one was just a
Transfer? Okay, okay.
We can set them up that way in certain circumstances, but this one where the rec fund is a governmental fund, we can just transfer it.
Okay.
And then the other thing I wanted to note is that if you recall the last budget amendment we did in fiscal year 24, we decided that we would set the fund balance of the general fund at 30% and transfer any excess over to our capital projects fund. Since we're still working on the year-end financials, we don't have that number yet, so that transfer has not been made. So I just wanted to point that out, that once that transfer is made, it will affect the cash balance of the general fund and the capital projects fund.
When do you hope to have that done?
Within the next week or two.
Oh, great.
We're hoping to present the audit results at the next council meeting, which means we need to have the financials done soon. So.
Okay.
All right, now we can go down a couple pages. Okay, so the first thing here, looking at general fund revenues, just wanted to point out that our property taxes look relatively low right now, and that's because they aren't due until the end of the year. So we'll start receiving the majority of our property tax revenue in November and December. Looking at sales tax, we are slightly lower this year than the last year's year-to-date. However, we are sitting at 26% of our budgeted revenue. So we're right on track with sales tax. We did lower it a little bit as compared to last year, expecting that we would receive a little bit less. But we are right on track as far as budgeted revenue goes. So looking at our total general fund revenues, we're sitting at 2.8 million, which is just slightly higher than where we were at last year. So I think overall we're doing well. Looking at expenses, We have a total of $3.1 million in expenses, which is pretty close to where we were last year. And you'll notice that we're right on track budgetary-wise. We've expended 25% of our budgets. We're right on track. And then we do show a net loss in our general fund, but that's in large part because we haven't received our property tax revenue, which is a substantial part of our revenue. Going on to the RDA, again, revenues look low here, but that's because we don't receive the tax increment revenue, which makes up the majority of the RDA revenue. We won't get that until spring, so those revenues will stay low until that happens.
How many years have we ticked off on the Young Power Sports RDA? Has that just been a year, or has it been over a year now?
No, we are in our, 24 is our first year for the tax increment.
Okay. So we're not through it. We're just starting it?
Just starting it.
Yeah, okay.
And then they have the option to trigger the sales tax incentive, and they have not done that yet.
Okay.
They have 3 years to do that. From 3 years from when they started operations, so they're about a year in now.
Okay.
Okay, looking at our recreation fund, the majority of the revenues in recreation was for fall baseball. From what I understand, they had a pretty good turnout for fall baseball. So the revenues are primarily baseball. However, the expenditures, because of the timing of our fiscal year end, they include expenditures for summer recreation and for baseball, which is partly why you see the loss on looking at it as an income statement here. The RAP tax, you'll notice that we've received $153,000 in RAP tax. This is just slightly lower than what we received last year, which is in line with our other sales tax revenues. And again, our expenditures out of this fund continue to be the 85% to parks, and the 5% to Whitaker, and the 5% to the theater, with the remaining 5% staying in the fund for future activities. Going on to our parks fund, you'll see that the majority of the revenue that we receive in this is from the RAP tax, and we have not expended a lot out of this fund. However, we do have the pickleball courts and the playground that we'll start working on here soon. Capital projects, a lot of these expenditures out of this fund is just timing based on when we receive the equipment. Yeah, so I think we've expended, I had 44%, but it's actually 22%. So we've expended 22% of that, out of that account currently. Our transportation fund, revenues are considerably less, looking at it compared to last year. This is due to just timing of when we've received the payments. A lot of these revenues they get passed down from the state. And I've been noticing that the state has been holding on to these funds and distributing them a little bit, taking their time to distribute them. So we didn't get some of our roads funds as early as we normally do.
Statutorily, do they have to send us those funds within a certain period of time?
That's a good question.
If they're earning interest on it, I'd rather us earn interest on it.
Sometimes, I mean, I've noticed it with our sales tax. It used to be on the 20th every month, and now it's 25th or 24th. So we have theories that they're hanging on to it for interest, but that's just my theory.
Well, I'm asking the question for the same reason, so.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be the first to think that.
Yeah. I can look into that.
Yeah, okay.
I think they are meeting, if I had to guess, they are meeting their statutory time. It's just taking them a little bit longer. But that's why you see the difference there.
Okay.
Okay, looking at our water fund, you'll notice that our operating revenue and expenditures are doing well. Our revenue is higher than our operating expenditures. So we're doing well operationally there. Then on our sanitation fund, we have a net income of $111,000, which is great. With the fall cleanup coming up, which I know is minor revenue, but I believe signups are going on now. And then finally in our drainage fund, you'll notice that our operating revenue is much higher this year as compared to last year, and that's because of the impact that the drainage audit had. So that's why you see such a large difference there. But even without that, we would be operating in the positive in that fund. So that's all I had prepared for you tonight. Do you have any questions for me?
Thanks, Nate. It's a lot of work. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Any questions for Nate?
No, and I love the way you do it. Makes it so easy to.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nate. Okay, next item on our agenda is a council report from Councilmember Plummer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council, staff. I appreciate the opportunity. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that has been done since our last report from myself. Tree Board continues to get information in regards to trees and parking strips. The last meeting was very informative. One of the members brought in a lot of information from different cities regarding the trees and parking strips. That is just a continuing discussion in that board. As far as the Centerville Citizens Corp, that is also continuing on. We've discussed the emergency preparedness fair. The success of that was very good. We had a large turnout. There is some consideration being taken to move that to springtime as opposed to summer, based upon allowing the National Guard and other first responders a better opportunity to participate, given that they're on call or very busy during the fire months.
And/or September 11 service
Yes, the
or
service.
celebrations, correct?
Indeed, yes.
Which it kind of fell on that same day for us.
Yes, so I think that is a consideration that we're taking very seriously in that body. Also, there is the desire for the chair that has requested to bring some information to the council, to the mayor. I know that he's been talking with staff, including the city manager, in regards to updating our emergency planning response and bilateral agreement, changing it to a multilateral agreement so that it would incorporate not just the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but other churches that are part of our community. So that's something that we would like to see maybe in a work session in the near future so that we can get that worked out. But other than that, that is my report.
Perfect. Thanks, Councilmember Plummer. Any other pressing items from our respective committees? I'll just note that last night we had our South Davis Rex board meeting, and we're just starting another budget round, which is slowly turning the ship, I hope. So,
Thank you for your service.
you guys are nice, and you're
And my comment
kind words.
to
What's that?
Councilman Hayman is, I'm seeing a lot of mosquitoes and it's past September
I
15th.
know.
My family came in
I
told me
know.
about mosquitoes and
They
I'm
gave
like,
up.
you
They
can't
stopped
be
spraying.
seeing mosquitoes, they're gone.
I know, I've been hearing this. In fairness, I have been hearing this, and the information that I'm getting back is that it's just stayed too warm this year. Because, I mean, the lighting changed, which if the temperatures drop, then they die off and they go dormant, but it stayed so warm that
Oh,
they've
that makes
just
sense.
perpetuated.
Thursday
Yeah.
will take care of that.
I
Okay.
know, I jinxed it because I said September 15th was.
Yeah, you were so excited.
I was just laughing because my whole family was complaining and I'm like, no, you guys, look.
We excuse the mayor as well as the city manager who are not able to be with us tonight. We do have a closed session, which we'll need a roll call vote to go into, as well as state the reasons for that, as well as probably not returning to our general session.
So I will make a motion to go into closed session for reasons allowed by law, including but not limited to provisions of use, what, do I have to say it? To discuss reasonably pending or reasonably imminent
Yes, that
litigation and
you do.
attorney-client matters privileged under Utah Code 78B-1-137 to not return.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with me. Aye?
Aye.
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 Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Lisa, any other staff that needs to stay besides you?